The planet KL7 was not a place for the faint of heart. Its jagged, rocky terrain stretched endlessly under a sky painted in hues of orange and purple, streaked with swirling clouds that promised storms at any moment. The air carried an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant howls of predators lurking just beyond sight. It was a world where survival depended on quick thinking, sharp instincts, and sheer determination. For Ethan Cole, this was home. Ethan wasn't like most people. He had spent years traveling to dangerous planets, earning his reputation as someone who could endure anything. His face bore the marks of countless close-call scars crisscrossing his skin, weathered by time and hardship. But it wasn't just his appearance that set him apart, it was his mindset. While others might have seen KL7 as a death trap, Ethan saw opportunity. The planet was rich in rare minerals, resources that fetched high prices on the galactic market. And so, he wandered its treacherous surface alone, armed with little more than his wits, a sturdy backpack filled with tools and a scanner strapped to his wrist. On this particular day, Ethan had ventured farther than usual. A lead from a local trader suggested there might be a deposit of zeronite, mineral prized for its energy-conducting properties hidden deep within a canyon system near the planet's equator. If true, finding it could change his fortunes forever. Of course, fortune often came hand in hand with danger on KL7, but Ethan had learned long ago to take risks if he wanted rewards. As he climbed over a ridge of sharp, black rocks, the ground beneath him trembled slightly. Pausing, Ethan glanced around. This wasn't unusual. Tectonic activity was common here. Still, something about the vibration felt different, more deliberate. He shook off the feeling and continued onward, focusing on the readings displayed on his scanner. The device beeped softly, indicating he was getting closer to the mineral deposit. Finally, after hours of climbing and navigating narrow paths between towering cliffs, Ethan reached what looked like a promising site. Nestled against the base of one cliff was a cluster of glittering crystals embedded in the rock. They caught the dim light of KL7's twin suns, shimmering faintly. Ethan crouched down, inspecting them closely. His gloved hands brushed away loose dirt, revealing more of the precious material underneath. "Bingo," he muttered under his breath, a grin spreading across his face. But before he could begin extracting the minerals, the sky above him shifted. At first, Ethan thought it was another storm rolling in. Dark clouds gathered rapidly, swirling faster than natural weather patterns should allow. Then, without warning, a bright flash illuminated the area, blinding him momentarily. When his vision cleared, he saw something impossible hovering above the canyon, a massive, circular object unlike anything he'd ever encountered. It wasn't a ship, not in the traditional sense. Its surface seemed to ripple, as though it were made of liquid metal reflecting the colors of the sky. Strange symbols glowed along its edges, pulsating rhythmically. Ethan stood frozen, staring up at the apparition. His instincts screamed at him to run, but curiosity rooted him to the spot. What was this thing? Where had it come from? Before he could decide whether to flee or investigate further, the object descended toward him. A loud hum filled the air, vibrating through his chest. Suddenly, a mechanical arm extended from the underside of the craft, tipped with claw-like appendages. Before Ethan could react, the claws shot downward, wrapping tightly around his torso. He let out a startled yell as he was lifted off the ground, dangling helplessly in midair. "Hey! What the hell is going on?" Ethan shouted, struggling against the grip of the alien mechanism. But no matter how hard he twisted or kicked, the claws held firm. The object began ascending back into the sky, pulling him along with it. Below, the canyon floor grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely, replaced by the endless expanse of KL7's harsh landscape. Panic surged through Ethan as he realized he was being abducted. Questions raced through his mind. Who or what was behind this? Why had they chosen him? Was this some kind of mistake? He tried shouting again, hoping whoever controlled the craft would hear him. "Let me go. I'm not who you think I am?" His words went unanswered. Instead, the craft accelerated, breaking through the atmosphere in seconds. The sudden change in pressure made Ethan's ears pop, and the cold vacuum of space pressed against him. Despite the terror gripping his heart, part of him couldn't help but marvel at the view. Stars stretched infinitely in every direction, their light twinkling like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Planets floated lazily in the distance, each one a tiny speck compared to the vastness surrounding them. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only minutes, the craft slowed and entered what appeared to be a docking bay. The walls were smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with an otherworldly hue. As the craft settled into place, the claws released Ethan, dropping him unceremoniously onto the floor. Pain shot through his body as he landed awkwardly, but adrenaline kept him moving. Scrambling to his feet, he spun around, searching for signs of life. What he saw left him speechless. Towering creatures emerged from the shadows, their forms unlike anything human. Their bodies were elongated, with limbs that seemed too thin to support their weight. Translucent skin revealed intricate networks of veins and organs beneath the surface, pulsing with a soft, inner light. Their eyes, if they could even be called that, were large and multifaceted, reflecting the ambient glow of the room. One of the beings stepped forward, its movements graceful yet deliberate. It raised a limb, pointing directly at Ethan, though it made no sound. Ethan felt a strange sensation in his mind, as though thoughts were being projected into his consciousness. Images flashed before his eyes, strange landscapes, unfamiliar technology, and glimpses of what might have been other species. He stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience. "What do you want from me?" Ethan demanded, his voice shaking despite his attempt to sound brave. "Why did you bring me here?" The creature didn't respond verbally, but the images in Ethan's mind grew clearer. He sensed emotions, curiosity, urgency, and something akin to desperation. Whatever these aliens were, they weren't acting out of malice. They needed something from him, though he couldn't yet understand what. Back on Earth, news of Ethan's disappearance spread quickly. His sister Claire received a frantic message from the mining outpost where Ethan had last checked in. She immediately contacted Daniel Hayes, a former pilot turned investigator known for his resourcefulness. Together, they began piecing together clues, determined to find out what had happened to Ethan. Claire knew her brother better than anyone. Growing up, they had relied on each other during tough times, forming a bond that transcended mere sibling affection. Losing him wasn't an option. "We'll get him back," she told Daniel firmly, her voice steady despite the worry gnawing at her insides. "Whatever it takes." Meanwhile, aboard the alien vessel, Ethan struggled to make sense of his situation. The creatures continued studying him, subjecting him to various scans and tests. Though frightened, Ethan refused to show weakness. He had survived countless dangers on KL-7. He wouldn't let fear conquer him now. Little did he know his resilience was exactly why the aliens had chosen him and why the entire galaxy would soon be watching. Ethan woke up in a dimly lit chamber, his head throbbing and his body feeling heavier than usual. The room around him was strange and unfamiliar. The walls glowed faintly, as though they were alive, with soft patterns of light that shifted like waves on water. There were no sharp edges or corners, everything curved smoothly, blending into the floor and ceiling. It was beautiful, but also unsettling. He tried to sit up, but his muscles felt sluggish, as if an invisible weight pressed down on him. Panic began to rise in his chest, but Ethan forced himself to stay calm. He reminded himself of the survival lessons he had learned over the years: assess the situation, conserve energy, and look for opportunities. Taking slow, deliberate breaths, he scanned the room for any sign of the creatures that had brought him here. Before long, one of them entered. It was taller than he remembered, its elongated limbs moving with fluid grace. Its skin was translucent, glowing faintly and revealing glimpses of what looked like organs and veins beneath the surface. Ethan instinctively backed away, pressing himself against the wall. The alien didn't approach immediately. Instead, it stood still, watching him with large, multifaceted eyes. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse. "What do you want from me?" The alien made no sound, but suddenly Ethan's mind filled with flashes of light and images. He saw strange landscapes, swirling galaxies, and unfamiliar machines. Emotions surged through him: curiosity, urgency, and something deeper, almost like desperation. It wasn't words, exactly, but Ethan understood the message all the same. These beings needed him for something important. Despite the fear gnawing at his insides, Ethan couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. What could they possibly need from him? He was just a scavenger, someone who survived by navigating dangerous planets. What value could he hold for such advanced creatures? Over the next few hours or maybe days. Time was hard to measure aboard the ship. Ethan underwent a series of tests. The aliens led him to different chambers, each designed to challenge him in unique ways. In one room, the temperature dropped drastically, forcing him to endure biting cold while solving simple puzzles to unlock doors. In another, the air grew thick and humid, testing his ability to think clearly under physical strain. At times, holographic predators would appear, startling him with their lifelike movements. Each scenario pushed him to his limits, both physically and mentally. At first, Ethan resisted. He shouted questions, demanded answers, and even tried to sabotage some of the tests. But the aliens ignored his protests, continuing their experiments without hesitation. Eventually, he realized resistance was futile. If he wanted to survive and perhaps find a way out, he would have to play along God as the tests progressed. Ethan noticed something odd. One of the aliens, slightly smaller than the others, seemed to linger longer than necessary during certain trials. Its movements were less mechanical, more deliberate. Sometimes it would pause and observe him closely, its glowing eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Ethan uneasy. He began to nickname this particular alien Luma. Based on the soft radiance emanating from its skin, Luma didn't interact directly with Ethan, but its presence gave him a sense of hope. Maybe not all of these beings viewed him as a mere test subject. Perhaps Luma saw something in him worth studying, not just his physical abilities, but his humanity. Back on Earth, Claire and Daniel worked tirelessly to uncover clues about Ethan's disappearance. Using data logs from the mining outpost and reports from nearby settlements, they pieced together fragments of information. Witnesses described seeing a strange object descending toward Kale 7 shortly before Ethan vanished. Satellite imagery confirmed unusual activity in the area, including a massive energy spike that coincided with the abduction. Claire knew she couldn't rely solely on official channels. Governments and corporations often moved too slowly, bogged down by bureaucracy and politics. She needed someone with connections, someone willing to take risks. That's when she turned to Daniel Hayes. Daniel wasn't your typical investigator. Once a pilot for the Galactic Transport Authority, he had left the job after a disastrous mission gone wrong. Since then, he'd built a reputation as a fixer, someone who could get things done quietly and efficiently. When Claire approached him, explaining the situation and showing him the evidence, Daniel didn't hesitate. He owed Claire a favor, and besides, the mystery intrigued him. Together, they tracked down leads, interviewing traders, miners, and anyone else who might have seen or heard something unusual. They discovered whispers of a mysterious species known as the Velitha reclusive group, rumored to possess technology far beyond human comprehension. Few people claimed to have encountered them, and those who did rarely spoke of it openly. Some believed the Velith were myths, stories told to scare children. Others insisted they were real, warning that crossing paths with them could mean death or worse. Armed with this new information, Claire and Daniel focused their efforts on learning more about the Velith. They scoured old archives, digging through forgotten records and classified files. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The Velith were indeed real, and their motives were shrouded in secrecy. Some accounts suggested they sought knowledge above all else, traveling across galaxies to study other species. Others hinted at darker intentions, claiming the Velith conducted experiments on living beings, pushing them to their limits in pursuit of scientific advancement. Claire refused to believe the worst. Her brother was alive, she could feel it. And if the Velith truly valued knowledge, then perhaps Ethan's survival skills had caught their attention. Maybe they saw him as someone special, someone capable of adapting to extreme conditions. Whatever the reason, Claire vowed to find him, no matter the cost. While Claire and Daniel unraveled the mystery on Earth, Ethan continued to adapt to life aboard the alien vessel. The tests grew more complex, requiring not just physical endurance but also problem-solving skills. In one chamber, he faced a labyrinthine puzzle involving shifting walls and glowing symbols. To escape, he had to decipher the patterns and predict their movements, a task that tested his patience as much as his intelligence. Another trial involved coordinating with holographic projections of other humans, working together to complete tasks despite the distractions of simulated environmental hazards. Through it all, Ethan remained determined. He refused to let fear consume him, focusing instead on finding patterns in the tests. Over time, he began to notice subtle details, the way certain symbols repeated themselves, the rhythm of the pulsing lights, the timing of the challenges. These observations gave him a sense of control. However small, Luma continued to watch him closely, occasionally adjusting the parameters of the tests mid-trial. Ethan started to wonder if Luma was responsible for designing them, or perhaps modifying them to suit Ethan's strengths. Once, during a particularly grueling endurance test, Luma intervened, halting the simulation just as Ethan reached his breaking point. For the first time since his capture, Ethan felt a glimmer of gratitude toward the alien. Despite the challenges, Ethan's resilience amazed the Veilith. They had expected him to break under pressure, to succumb to despair or exhaustion. Instead, he adapted, growing stronger with each trial. Even Luma seemed impressed, lingering longer than ever before during one of the final tests. This time, Ethan decided to take a risk. As the alien observed him, he spoke aloud, knowing it might not understand his words but hoping it would sense his intent. "I don't know why you chose me," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fatigue weighing him down. "But I'm not giving up. You can keep throwing whatever you want at me, I'll find a way through it." For a moment, Luma paused, tilting its head as though considering his words. Then, without warning, the alien extended a limb, touching a glowing panel on the wall. The test ended abruptly and the chamber went dark. Ethan waited, unsure what to expect next. When the lights returned, Luma was gone, leaving behind only silence. Hours later, or perhaps days, Ethan still couldn't tell. The chamber door slid open, revealing a new room unlike any he'd seen before. This one was vast, filled with towering structures that resembled trees made of crystal. Their branches sparkled with light, casting intricate patterns across the floor. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, atop which rested a single glowing orb. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to approach. But something about the orb drew him in, compelling him to step forward. As he reached out to touch it, a surge of energy coursed through his body, filling him with warmth and clarity. Images flooded his mind, visions of distant galaxies, collapsing stars and civilizations teetering on the brink of extinction. He staggered back, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what he had seen. When the visions faded, Ethan understood two things. First, the Veilith weren't abducting humans out of malice or cruelty. They were desperate, searching for solutions to a crisis threatening not just their own species but countless others. Second, he had been chosen for a reason. His ability to adapt, to survive in the harshest environments, made him uniquely suited to help them. Far away, on Earth, Claire and Daniel prepared for their next move. They had uncovered enough evidence to confirm Ethan's abduction by the Veilith, but finding him would require more than research. They needed a plan, and fast. Time was running. Ethan stood in the crystalline room, his mind racing as he tried to process what he had just experienced. The glowing orb had shown him visions of collapsing stars, dying planets, and civilizations on the brink of extinction. It wasn't just a random display, it was a message, a warning. The Veilith weren't abducting humans for sport or cruelty. They were desperate, searching for solutions to a crisis that threatened not only their species but countless others across the galaxy. The weight of the situation settled over Ethan like a heavy blanket. He was just one man, a scavenger who survived by navigating dangerous planets. How could he possibly help solve something so vast? Yet, deep down, he knew the answer. His ability to adapt, to endure harsh conditions and think quickly under pressure, was exactly why the Valeth had chosen him. They saw potential in him, potential to contribute to something far greater than himself. Luma reappeared shortly after the vision ended, its translucent form glowing faintly in the dim light of the crystalline chamber. This time, it didn't observe silently from afar. Instead, it approached Ethan, extending a limb toward him. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to trust the alien. But something about Luma's presence felt different now, less clinical, more compassionate. Are you trying to tell me something? Ethan asked cautiously, keeping his voice steady despite the unease bubbling inside him. What do you want from me? Once again, words didn't come directly from Luma. Instead, images and emotions flooded Ethan's mind. He saw glimpses of the Valeth's homeworld, a planet ravaged by environmental collapse, its once vibrant landscapes reduced to barren wastelands. He felt their desperation, their fear of losing everything they had built. And then he understood. The Valeth believed humanity held the key to solving this galactic crisis. Humans were adaptable, resilient, capable of thriving in environments no other species could endure. That was why they had taken Ethan not out of malice, but out of hope. As Ethan processed these revelations, Claire and Daniel back on Earth were closing in on answers. Armed with the evidence they had gathered, they approached Dr. Rachel Meyer, a renowned xenobiologist known for her work studying alien species. Though skeptical at first, Rachel agreed to hear them out after seeing the satellite data and witness reports. This is unprecedented, Rachel said, leaning back in her chair as she reviewed the information. Her eyes scanned the documents, her brow furrowed in thought. If what you're saying is true, if the Valeth are involved, then we're dealing with technology and motives far beyond anything we've encountered before. Claire leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. We don't have time for skepticism, Dr. Meyer. My brother is out there, and whatever the Valeth are planning, it's big. We need your expertise to figure out how to reach them. Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. I'll do what I can, but understand this. The Valeth are notoriously reclusive. If they've abducted your brother, it means they see value in him. That could be good, or it could mean they're willing to take extreme measures to get what they want. Despite the ominous warning, Rachel agreed to help. She provided Claire and Daniel with access to classified research on the Valeth, including theories about their communication methods and possible locations of their vessels. With this new knowledge, they began devising a plan to track down Ethan. Meanwhile, aboard the Valeth ship, Ethan continued to undergo tests, though they grew less physically demanding and more focused on problem-solving. In one trial, he was placed in a simulated environment resembling a bustling city under siege by natural disasters. Buildings crumbled, rivers overflowed, and fires spread uncontrollably. Ethan's task was to coordinate resources and prioritize actions to minimize casualties, a challenge that tested both his leadership skills and emotional resilience. At first, Ethan struggled. The chaos overwhelmed him, and every decision felt like a gamble. But as he pushed through, he began to notice patterns. Certain actions yielded better results than others, and he learned to anticipate the consequences of his choices. By the end of the simulation, he had managed to save a significant portion of the virtual population. When the trial concluded, Luma appeared once more, its glowing form radiating approval. You're starting to understand, aren't you? Ethan muttered aloud, though he wasn't sure if Luma could comprehend his words. You're teaching me how to handle problems bigger than myself. Back on Earth, Claire and Daniel made a breakthrough. Using data from Rachel's research and satellite imagery, they identified a region of space where Valeth activity had been detected recently. It was near Kale 7, the planet where Ethan had disappeared. The timing was too coincidental to ignore, armed. With this lead, they secured passage on a transport vessel heading toward the coordinates. The journey would take several days, during which they prepared for every possible scenario. Claire practiced using advanced scanning equipment while Daniel reviewed tactical strategies. Neither of them knew exactly what awaited them, but they were determined to face it head-on board the Veileth ship. Ethan received another vision, one far more personal than the previous ones. This time, he saw flashes of his own life, moments spent with Claire, early days scavenging on dangerous planets, and quiet nights gazing up at the stars. The images carried a sense of longing, as though the Veileth were trying to connect with him on a deeper level. Through these memories, Ethan realized something crucial. The Veileth weren't just interested in his physical abilities. They valued his humanity, his capacity for empathy, creativity, and perseverance. Encouraged by this insight, Ethan decided to take a bold step. During his next trial, he deliberately altered the parameters of the simulation, introducing variables that forced the Veileth to rethink their approach. Rather than simply following instructions, he began experimenting, testing boundaries, and challenging assumptions. To his surprise, Luma seemed intrigued by his actions. Observing closely as Ethan pushed the limits of the trials, one evening, or what passed for evening aboard the ship, Ethan found himself alone in the crystalline chamber. The glowing orb rested silently on its pedestal, pulsing faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. Summoning his courage, Ethan approached it and placed his hand on its surface. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through him, filling his mind with new information. He saw the Veileth's plan, or at least part of it. They intended to use human adaptability to stabilize regions of space affected by the galactic crisis. By combining advanced technology with humanity's innate resilience, they hoped to prevent entire star systems from collapsing. But the process was risky, requiring sacrifices that many might deem unacceptable. When the vision faded, Ethan felt torn. On one hand, he admired the Veileth's determination to save lives. On the other, he questioned the morality of their methods. Was it right to ask humans to bear such a burden? And what would happen if their efforts failed? Determined to find answers, Ethan devised a way to send a message back to Earth, using tools provided during his tests. He constructed a makeshift transmitter capable of broadcasting basic coordinates. It wasn't much, but it was enough to alert Claire and Daniel to his location. As he activated the device, he whispered a silent prayer, hoping someone would hear his call. Thousands of miles away, Claire and Daniel's scanners picked up the signal. At first, they thought it was interference, a glitch in the system. But when they analyzed the data, they realized it was coming from the exact region of space where the Veileth ship was believed to be located. "It's him," Claire said breathlessly, clutching the scanner tightly. Tears welled up in her eyes as relief washed over her. "It has to be." Daniel nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "We're close now. Whatever happens next, we stick together and we bring him home." As the transport vessel adjusted course, Claire and Daniel prepared for the confrontation. Ahead, they knew the odds were stacked against them. The Veileth were powerful, their technology far superior to anything humanity possessed. But they also knew one thing for certain: Ethan was alive, and he was fighting to survive. Back aboard the Veileth ship, Ethan braced himself for what was to come. He didn't know whether his message had reached Earth, but he clung to the hope that help was on the way. Until then, he would keep pushing forward, adapting to each challenge and proving to the Veileth and to himself that he was more than just a test subject. The stage was set. Two worlds, separated by vast distances and unimaginable differences, were about to collide. Humanity and the Veileth stood on the brink of an alliance that could change the fate of the galaxy or tear it apart. For Ethan, Claire, and everyone else caught in the middle, the stakes had never been higher. Claire and Daniel's transport vessel reached the coordinates where Ethan's signal had originated. As they approached, a massive alien ship came into view, a sleek, shimmering structure that seemed to pulse with life. The sight filled them with all but also unease. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. Using the equipment aboard their vessel, Claire attempted to establish communication with the Veileth ship. At first, there was only silence. Then, unexpectedly, a response came, not in words, but in a series of glowing symbols projected onto their view screen. Though they couldn't understand the message directly, Rachel Meyer's research provided some context. The symbols appeared to be an invitation or perhaps a warning. "We're going in," Claire said firmly, her voice steadied despite the tension in the air. Daniel nodded, double-checking their gear. They knew this could be dangerous, but turning back wasn't an option. Ethan was counting on them. The transport docked with the Valeth ship, and a corridor extended to connect the two vessels. As Claire and Daniel stepped inside, they were greeted by Luma, the same alien who had observed Ethan closely during his trials. Its translucent form glowed faintly, and its multifaceted eyes studied them with curiosity. "Where's my brother?" Claire demanded, her tone firm but controlled. Luma didn't respond verbally, but instead projected images into their minds, visions of Ethan enduring tests, solving problems and adapting to challenges. Through these flashes, Claire and Daniel began to understand why the Valeth had taken him. They saw glimpses of a galactic crisis, stars collapsing and planets dying, and they realized the Valeth believed humanity could help save countless lives. Ethan was brought to meet them shortly after. When he saw Claire, relief washed over his face, but it was mixed with concern. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice low. "This isn't just about me anymore." Claire shook her head. "We're not leaving without you." Luma intervened, projecting more images, this time showing a plan to stabilize the collapsing regions of space. The process required combining human adaptability with Valeth technology. It was risky and sacrifices would be necessary. But if successful, it could prevent catastrophe on a galactic scale. Claire listened intently, weighing the implications. She looked at Ethan, then at Daniel, searching for answers in their expressions. Finally, she turned to Luma. "If we agree to help, will you let us work together? No more secrets, no more tests without explanation." Luma paused, its glowing form flickering slightly before nodding. It seemed to understand her demand for trust. With little time to waste, Ethan, Claire, Daniel, and the Valeth devised a strategy. Using advanced terraforming techniques and human ingenuity, they aimed to restore balance to the destabilized star cluster. The task would require teamwork, courage, and sacrifice, but failure wasn't an option. As they prepared for the mission, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had started as a lone scavenger on KL7, but now he stood alongside his sister and new allies, ready to make a difference. Together, they embarked on a journey that would test their limits and unite two vastly different species in a shared goal: saving the galaxy. The mission to stabilize the collapsing star cluster was fraught with danger. Ethan, Claire, Daniel, and the Valeth worked side by side, combining human creativity with alien technology. The process involved deploying massive devices into the heart of the unstable region, where intense energy waves threatened to tear apart anything that ventured too close. Each step required precision, teamwork, and nerves of steel. Ethan took charge of coordinating the human efforts, his experience in survival situations proving invaluable. He guided Claire and Daniel through chaotic environments, ensuring they stayed safe while carrying out their tasks. Meanwhile, Luma and other Valeth operated the advanced machinery, their glowing forms moving gracefully as they adjusted settings and monitored progress. Despite their differences, the two species found a rhythm, working together seamlessly. At one critical moment, disaster struck. A sudden surge of energy from the collapsing stars knocked out part of the equipment, leaving a key section of the stabilization grid incomplete. Without it, the entire operation would fail. Ethan quickly assessed the situation and volunteered to repair the damaged device himself. "No way," Claire protested, grabbing his arm. "It's too dangerous." "I'm the best chance we've got," Ethan replied calmly. "You know that." Reluctantly, Claire let him go, her heart pounding as she watched him suit up and step into the void. With Luma guiding him remotely, Ethan navigated the treacherous field of energy waves, dodging bursts of radiation as he made his way to the broken device. His hands trembled as he worked, but years of scavenging on KL7 had taught him how to stay focused under pressure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the device flickered back to life. Back aboard the ship, cheers erupted among both humans and Valeth. The stabilization grid held firm, and slowly, the collapsing stars began to settle. The crisis was averted for now. When the mission ended, the galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. News of humanity's role in saving Countless lives spread quickly, earning respect and admiration from species across the stars. For the first time, Earth was seen not just as a fledgling civilization, but as a vital ally capable of great courage and ingenuity. Ethan returned home hailed as a hero, though he remained humble about his actions. Claire, too, gained recognition for her determination and leadership during the mission. Together they became symbols of hope, proof that even the smallest efforts could make a difference when united by a common goal. As for the Valeth, their relationship with humanity transformed. What had started as fear and mistrust evolved into mutual respect and collaboration. Diplomatic exchanges began, laying the foundation for a lasting partnership between the two species. Looking up at the night sky, Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had started this journey alone, but he ended it surrounded by family both human and alien. The scars of the ordeal would always remain, but so would the lessons learned: resilience, unity, and the unshakable belief that no challenge was insurmountable when faced together. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, Luma watched silently, its glowing form pulsing softly. Though it said nothing, Ethan knew the bond they had formed would endure, a quiet reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, connection was possible.